Everybody got it? Y'all ready to start? Okay. All right. So back for part two of our budget session today. And Kevin, we had a very robust discussion earlier.
We did.
So we will. So we'll open up and I'll let you go ahead and get started. And we like to welcome Mayor Tim Kelly. Well, we've been famous in these budget sessions. We got the property assessor, then we got the mayor.
Right.
So we've been, bringing out the heavy hitters. So we appreciate you coming to our budget session today. And we'll turn it over to Kevin and get started.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, council members, thank you very much for not just the second budget work session of the day, but the sixth one in 3 weeks. We've been spending a lot of time together looking at this budget. I wonder if there has ever been a City of Chattanooga budget that has gotten as much attention and scrutiny as this one. Yeah. Well, maybe so. That's right. So I'm excited to have Mayor Kelly here, obviously, to make this proposal about the millage rate. I do want to briefly say a couple things in response to some of the ideas brought forward in the previous session around potential areas to cut. We are happy to look at the proposal that you put forward, Madam Chair, particularly around community development, and see what that might possibly look like. In response to your commentary, Councilman Davis, I want to say that the administration in the second session that we had, when we brought forward kind of bodies of work and different numbers, that was the product of earnest efforts to go through and find fat on this budget, and we put forward things that could be done. But then what my commentary at the time was that these are not cuts that the administration supports pursuing. But I feel like that we gave you guys all of the raw materials to put together, a proposal, a slate of cuts, and I do appreciate that some of you have. But I wanted to make that remark. And then lastly, one thing that we're going to point out today in this presentation is that one piece that has kind of fallen off in this conversation is that part of what we have done year over year as an administration with respect to putting forward more and more efficient budgets is that we have had to absorb escalating costs in all areas, and you're going to see some of that in this presentation. And my hope is that while we have spent a lot of time in the weeds over the last few weeks and in this budget, my hope now is that Mayor Kelly can help us kind of big picture from a strategic perspective, talk about what would be an appropriately calibrated path forward. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you for all your hard work on this process. This is how the sausage is made, and it's how it should be made. I mean, that's what we're doing. But I think, my job here is to kind of zoom out, back up to that 10,000 foot level, and talk about what's at stake here. So, first slide. Again, look, the reason this is such an unprecedented and interesting budget year is because we've never had in our lifetimes a spike in inflation like this. It's really just quite simple. When I came into office in 2021, that dollar today is quite literally, for on average, $1.22, right? So just to stay even, we would have to increase 22%, just to stay even. Next slide. Here are some great examples of random, not random, but selected very important items that we have to purchase on a regular basis, and how much they've increased, right? It is a very, very real thing. All of those items, which are essential, have increased more than just the overall average. Next slide. And you can see it here in a deeper dive, a deeper bucket. Our costs are up $25 million. Again, 26% overall. Next slide. Paving alone, right? We all hear a lot about paving. When I came into office, of course, we were historically underfunding paving. We were spending $4 million a year. I pledged to spend 10, but again, 10's not enough. I mean, we're talking about if we held the rate and raised $80 million, it wouldn't touch the backlog that we've got in paving alone. Paving costs have gone through the roof. Now, look, at some point we'll talk about alternative funding strategies for transportation, but this is a really good illustration of what we're up against. Historically, we have captured growth. You can see here the tax revenue that we generate versus the year and appraised value. Again, you will hear me say we need to do the responsible thing to drive Chattanooga forward. We're not talking about the order of increase that we would have historically made based on the rate of inflation. And again, this is not just about this year, because obviously this budget, will determine our next year, but it will also determine, the next 4, unless you've decided to change the rate somewhere in between. Next slide.
Can I jump in real quick
Sure.
and just say, so we've talked about, to fund the ask that fire and police have put forward, that they both talked about respectively last week. The number for that ask is 23,693,912. But that's just for this year, right? And so we've been talking about, well, how can we get out of that? We're going to talk more about kind of some structural ideas at the end of this presentation. But it's important to think about, the 23 is for this year. Next year it's +3, +3, +3. So by 2030, just to stay competitive with what we are contemplating doing in this year, is going to be 38 million on 38 million incremental cost to the city by 2030, and then to stay on top of the 3% increase that we've been doing on the civilian side, that incremental cost is 27 million by 2030. So we're talking about, just 4 short years from now, if we want to make this market adjustment on compensation and stay on top of it on a go forward, we are talking about $65 million that we do not have today and that we're not spending today.
Skip down 2 slides to the one Chattanooga slide. One more. We'll come back to those.
Okay.
So look, when I came into office, some of y'all were around, some of y'all were not yet on council. The One Chattanooga plan, whatever you think of it, was my attempt to essentially create a strategic plan for the city. Those 7 pillars, from early learning to economic vitality of the Black community to affordable housing, all of those are essentially were my take, and you may have your own, on the strategic investments that we need to make to drive Chattanooga forward. And that's what they are. They're not expenses, they are investments. If they're expenses, if they're vain political projects, we shouldn't spend money on them. If they're not driving Chattanooga forward, then we shouldn't do it. And frankly, that's going to be up to y'all to kind of go through line by line and decide, right? But just the paving budget alone, I would tell you, is enough to choke a horse. So next slide. No, keep going down. We'll come back to that.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, so here's some examples, right? We know about, I should have mentioned by now, the fire and police at this point, I think, are a foregone conclusion. We have to do that. I think everybody here understands. We have to do that. But it's not just about that. It's about expanding the work of the chain breakers. It's about, again, paving, sidewalks, deferred maintenance, building better neighborhoods, making government more efficient so that we can actually increase, or rather decrease operating costs down the road. Next slide. Slip on past these. We can come back to those. Okay, so historical context. This is really important. Because you can see here, going back to 1989, what happened, in successive councils when we did increases, and why. If you'll look at the next slide, you'll see why. This is what happened in the wider economy with inflation. So you can see that in most cases, we adjusted up the tax rate when there was a jump, usually just after there was a jump in inflation, because at that point the bar is set, those prices are higher, those are the prices you're having to pay. But you can see that, over the course of the last, 40 years, what we just went through is not like anything that we have ever been through. And thank goodness we're not talking about asking for an increase like that, but we are asking for an increase. Next slide.
What is COC?
City of Chattanooga.
Thank you.
And again, this is essentially a critical decision that you guys have to make, because look, we could go cheap and get by, but we are, I'd like to say one of the problems we have is that it's not apparent that it seems as though government has no competition. But we do have competition. We're in a competition with other cities for economic development, for quality of life. And if we go cheap, you know, we're gonna suffer. I mean, this is a city, as you've all heard me say a million times, of incredible potential. So the question is, are we going to make the necessary investments to have it live up to its potential? Or are we just gonna tie a knot in it, you know, and fall back? This is important, really important. I think it's, you know, if we look at our peer cities, now the Nashville number there is metro, so that is a per resident expenditure that includes their county taxes. But I think it's safe to say that if you include city and county for us, we'd be well below that, well below that. Memphis is not a city that we aspire to be, God bless them. But we're well behind Knoxville. And at a rate of, even at holding the rate, we would be below Knoxville on a dollars per resident basis. And that really is kind of the best metric that we could hope to have. I hate to make you jump around,
That's all right.
partner, but if you could skip on back up to those first ones. There you go. So, look, you know, I'm an old car guy. Good, better, best is always a great way to present anything. We got to do 186, I think, you know, because we've got to do the raises for police and fire. And we could scrape by and make some difficult sacrifices. We could hold the rate, and we would have quite a bit more to be even more proactive to address infrastructure issues and make some wise investments to drive the city forward. But to be fair, right? You know, I'm all about fiscal discipline. I don't want to raise any more revenue than we need to pursue our most critical priorities. And I think 199 is kind of the Goldilocks level here. It would raise another 50 million in revenue. It would mean essentially $1.23 for the average resident in Chattanooga per day. It's a bottle. I don't even think you can buy a bottle of water for that, right? So it's not going to be crippling. And I can tell you that, you know, as a second-term mayor, I'm going to push all my chips forward and own it because I do believe that it's the right investment for the city, and I'll get behind any one of you who gets behind it. The reverse is true, you know, from a political perspective, frankly. So with that, I would just say. You want to talk about the fixing it for good? You might be, look, we need to get off this, we need to get off this treadmill, right? I think part of the problem that we've got in city government is that things aren't indexed for inflation. So inflation comes along and, you know, nobody sees it. It's just the temperature of the water we're swimming in. So this is a separate issue. It requires separate legislation. But I would encourage you, once we get past this debate on what this millage rate will be, we really need to pass an ordinance that will peg the budget to the consumer price index, unless you decide to do something else. And I don't know why you would, because that's going to at least give us constant dollars. I'm willing to admit, you know, I'm fiscally conservative enough that I'm not trying to grow the size of government. But if you just want the size of government to stay the same, if you're happy with it, then you have to index it to inflation, or we're just going to continue to fall further and further and further behind. And if you wanted to do something more than that, then certainly you would have the latitude to do that. You guys have the checkbook and the purse strings. So that's a separate piece of legislation that we'll talk about afterwards, but I just wanted to kind of put a pin in there.
Yep. And then I think it would be helpful to come back through and just take a look. You know, up to this point, we've kind of been looking at a district by district
Look at the
analysis
increase, not the gross number.
of home prices. And so if you think about it now in terms of the median home price in Chattanooga, which is that 309, 350 figure, then what we're talking about is this 199 figure across the middle, jumping down to the incremental
Right.
impact on the city portion of property tax. We're talking about 449. And so the way that we got to the 123 a day is simply 449 divided by 365, right?
Yeah, and that's where you get back to $1.23 a day for the average resident. We think that's affordable. I mean, you get above that, you know, look, let's face it, folks can afford it. I mean, the federal tax cuts are going to create a lot more wealth in the upper brackets. Frankly, that ain't what I'm worried about. I'm worried about rank and file average residents in Chattanooga who will be struggling to afford it. But I think, again, these are investments that will drive economic development and quality of life. And I do think for our average residents, this is a justifiable ask. It's important to note that for homeowners, most of this is gonna come, it's gonna be escrowed, it's gonna come out of their escrowed mortgage. You know, for folks renting, the rental market is what determines rental rates. And I don't think these increases are enough at the lower end of the spectrum that they're gonna cause anybody to run out and raise their rent. So that's it. I mean, I'm happy to answer any questions. Again, thanks to my team for doing all this heavy lifting. I'm only here just to kind of give you all that 10,000-foot view of what's at stake here.
All right, council. So first, thank you, Mayor Kelly. So I saw Councilman Henderson's hand, but I wanted to go back to Councilman Davis to make sure did your question get answered as best as it could be answered?
Yeah, and I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you so much.
And I should also say, and again, we're grateful, Councilman Clark's not here, but, I mean, we're grateful for all the ideas around streamlining. I'm all about it. You know, we've already done a lot of streamlining, and we plan to do more. But listen, you know, I ran big budgets in my own businesses for decades, and if I thought there was fat on the lamb, you know, you ought to, well, you can't vote me out now, but you should, right? Because it's not that I'm, you know, all-knowing, all-seeing. There could be things I'm missing, but my staff is very, very good, as you all know, and so, you know, have at it is what I would say. But you know, if I thought there was a lot of fat on the lamb to be cutting and throwing overboard, I'd have already done it.
Okay. All right, so, also I did want to note that Councilman Clark is watching online.
Okay.
And so just so we're clear, the recommended rate is $1.99. Is
Yes,
that right,
ma'am.
1.99, okay. And then, just as a side note to what Mayor Kelly was saying in regards to working on those policies, as your budget chair, I have been meeting with finance and I believe Mandy and Steve, to actually talk about what those look like. So we are working toward that end to see how we can, you know, get all this taken care of. So I just want to make you aware of that. So that will be coming after we finish this budget process. And this is from early on, our budget amendment from February that we started working on this, with Madam Chair. So, with that, I will turn it over to Councilman Henderson. Anyone else have questions? Okay, Councilwoman Burrs. Anybody else right now? Okay, Councilman Henderson, followed by Councilwoman Burrs.
Chief, Mayor, whoever wants to, so the $1.99 doesn't take into consideration any reappropriations to the budget at this point. Is that correct?
Well, I'm not necessarily conceding that. Are you talking about making cuts to the current enacted budget? Coming back through
We're
and,
calling them cuts. Really what we're.
Resizing them.
I guess what I'm referring to is reappropriations, because what we're trying to do is achieve pay raises for fire and police.
Yeah.
I'm calling them reappropriations. You can call them cuts, whatever. I didn't hear any proposal about any reappropriations or cuts to this budget.
so
Is that correct?
right now, as it stands, that's correct. I think that the administration's position on it is that we don't see a way to institute cuts without impacting services and or people. But if there are additional ideas that don't do that, then we want to entertain them. I think that we're kind of in this like back and forth on this issue because I feel like we've been clear that we don't want to cut people or services. And then you have indicated to me that you don't want to either, but that you want us to, and so we're kind of in a stalemate with respect to that.
Well, we can address that in a minute. I won't try to keep a train of thought. Just so that the average taxpayer, I think, can figure out what their taxes may be. This $1.99 is about, if I'm correct, Weston, is a 28%.
I think it's
Increase
28.4.
in taxes. So the average taxpayer, if they take their tax bill from last year, they can figure 28%, and that's what they'll be paying in addition. Except for, and another thing that I had asked Weston for is a figure. So Mr. Haynes stated that we saw a third of the properties go down in value, a third stayed the same, and a third went up in value. I know in my district, several people's went up almost 100%. I would like to know how this would impact that top third, those people. And in my opinion, it was really the top third that maybe could afford it the least. Those houses that went from, maybe 150 to 300, because there were a lot of those.
Yeah.
I think people in that tax bracket are gonna find this a harder pill to swallow. The second thing is the $1.99 and this, I would like to see a breakdown of exactly where that money's gonna go. I mean, right now, we're talking conceptual. I'd like to see a breakdown around this table of what those dollars are literally going to line item in the budget.
And I think that's exactly what y'all should be doing at this point, is taking the list, right, and mapping it over. And again, if it doesn't pass the smell test as something that you think is a wise strategic investment in the future of the city, then don't do it.
And we definitely want to sit down and collaborate with you guys on that. I will say that we have a list that is kind of, to your point, broad strokes at this point, where, we have 30 million kind of earmarked where we would address pay raises. There are 3, I think, immediate fire trucks needed. Chief Chambers over on the CPD side had talked about the fleet challenges that they're facing, so 2.5 million would go towards helping address those challenges at CPD. I think we put $1 million for some sort of chain breaker expansion, which we would love to discuss with you guys. And then on the paving, sidewalks, and deferred maintenance side, that number is comprised of, paving streets, paving sidewalks, crosswalks. There's some deferred maintenance in our community centers. We've talked about deferred maintenance in parks, and so it's going in and basically plussing up those existing line items.
But the easy button here, Councilman Henderson, is, back to the paving and the sidewalk things. I mean, the backlog is so huge. I mean, when I came into office, I said, we'll get the pavement condition index up to good, and the inflation has gone so high that, I mean, even if we held the rate, we'd be lucky to do it in the next 4 years.
So, one last thing, there was a slide that we're talking about, I think 3% over the next 3 or 4 years, what that got us to. Did that take in consideration growth as well? Or was that just a 3%?
Yeah, so this is just.
23 grows to 38 with 3%, but that doesn't take in growth, correct?
No, this is just on the expense side, like what it will cost the city to fund a 3% increase on top of those 2 baselines. So,
But we won't be able to capture any growth, certainly, except in a couple of small buckets in property tax revenue. Sales tax, who knows? But
Well,
until the next reappraisal
typically,
comes in.
we grow about 3% a year, our budget. $8-9 million.
Sure.
And that's what I was asking. You're just simply saying
that's gonna be the
3% on
cost
top of 23 is 38.
over those years,
Over
yeah,
those years.
that's right.
Compound.
Basically, by 2030, the 23 million that we're talking about today, if we wanna stay on incremental 3% increases in the out years, becomes 38 million by 2030.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Councilman Henderson, Councilwoman Burris, followed by Councilman Elliott.
So if we go with the 199, does that just solve the problem for this fiscal year, and we'll be having the same conversation this time next year?
Well, I think, going back to the mayor's point about trying to structurally address it, it seems like you guys are interested in pursuing something akin to what Knoxville has done, where in their ordinance, basically, the city council has compelled all mayoral administrations to include in annual budget proposals, I think theirs is a 4% increase. And it says in their ordinance that the administration may likewise propose a funding mechanism for that increase. And so I think that what we should do is, separate from this conversation, once we get over this hurdle, to sit down and have that policy discussion as to what might make sense for Chattanooga, including entertaining the notion of trying to, there is a way conceptually to automatically peg whatever the cost of the incremental increase is back to the adopted tax rate and to adjust it accordingly.
And if I may, I would caution you against using a flat percentage like 4, because it could go up or down. There is good economic data available through the Bureau of Labor Statistics that is localized to this region. And that, to me, would be the logical metric to use, right? Because you want it to reflect, any increase in local costs. Because that's all you're trying to do, is keep it constant over time.
And what impact might that have on the tax rate next year? And you may have just answered that,
Yeah, so,
or on
There-
property
there's a-
taxes next year. What impact might that have on property taxes next year and then for the following 2 years?
sure, there's a spreadsheet that finance had put together. I do not have it handy, and I don't see Weston in here.
Yeah, he's in here.
Oh, he is. Do you, could we save that for the very end, and then Weston could come up? Weston, could you just go ahead and be prepared to come up and plug in, and we can kind of walk through that scenario? Thanks.
And so what I'm asking is, if we go with the 1.99, then what might that look like hypothetically for 27, 28,
Right.
29?
Yep, and that's the
Okay.
question that we'll answer.
Okay.
And to be fair, it's unknowable, right? 'Cause we
Right,
don't know what the
right, but-
inflation's gonna be. I mean, in
Sure.
theory, sometimes the economy contracts in a recession. The advantage of this is it could go down, in which case, in theory, it would be flat, or whatever y'all decide to do, it could actually decrease. But typically, historically, it averages about 3% a year, as Jeremy Anderson pointed out.
Thank you.
You know, we can kind of get creative with it in terms of crafting that standalone ordinance, because, for example, one thing that we could do is say, that, we're only gonna tolerate some amount of agreed upon increase to the adopted tax rate annually, and then encumber the administration to find the delta within some parameters that we talk about, if that makes sense, right? Instead of just automatically saying it's bang bang,
Right,
we can figure out a tailored approach.
okay, thank you.
All right, thanks so much, Councilwoman Burrs. Councilman Elliott.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Can you go back to those options?
This one?
As these options increase, are we seeing an increase in the pay going to fire and police?
Well, we could. I think that but no is kind of like our assumption, because we've benchmarked against the 23 million and change dollar, which fire and police have communicated to us at this juncture that is their ask. But if we have more available, we can certainly do more.
I want to I think it's important for us to stay focused on the core of the conversation, which is fire and police. Now, if we're going to increase more and we're going to entertain a higher rate, I would like to see an increase in their pay. It's not enough just to be middle of the road if we're going to pay higher taxes. We already getting word that the sheriff and that's really one of the main reasons we're having this conversation. A lot of this is inflation and everything else, but a lot of this is out of our control. It's a rat race between law enforcement agencies as to who can pay the most. And if we're going to look at a higher increase, let's not just be middle of the road, because we're going to be right here again in the next 4 years, because we already hear the sheriff's office is ready to jump us over again. So I'm with Councilman Henderson. I'd like to see a breakdown as to what we get in each one of these buckets. Almost like a little subscription. When you go to the subscription service, you can get the premium, the basic, the advanced. I would like to see what that looks like and where these dollars go. And I would like to see a movement in pay with fire and police. I don't want to see it stagnant across the board.
So, Councilman, if I may, the way to do that would be in this secondary amendment, because if we get this passed, we're good. Police and fire are going to be good. But on a going forward basis, if you guys were to index to the consumer price index, and then that were to pass through to personnel, I mean, let's face it, our number one expense is personnel. But if that were to pass through to raises that are indexed to inflation, then that would put their raises in constant dollars over time.
And Mayor, I hear what you're saying on that portion, and I think it is important for us to see how we can make this sustainable long term. I think this is the first time I've really heard that proposal concrete from even if somebody from your staff. I would like to see what that looks like even further, because I hear what you're saying, but I need to conceptualize it a little bit differently.
Sure, yeah.
As to what does it looks like to potentially tie something to it. But at least for this sake, I would like to see a breakdown of a increase along the range for pay. And I would also like to see, as you guys are proposing extra allocations, where is it gonna go exactly? And how's it gonna benefit the people of my district? So I would like to see, if you're gonna put more money towards roads, how's that gonna impact those in District 9? Because me having the highest increase in assessment values, and for me to ask my folks to okay this, I need them to say, this is what you're gonna get. And so before I feel comfortable moving any further with anything else, I need those two things. How are we gonna do this right, so we're not kicking the can down the road? I'm okay if my people okay and we can swallow this, and we're the highest paid law enforcement agency, the highest paid fire agency in this region. That's fine, because they deserve it and then some. But I need my people to see it, to see what they're gonna get in addition to those extra funds. So that's what I ask.
We will 100% do that for you.
Thank you so much, Councilman Elliott. Councilman Clark, did you have a question?
I do. Hey, Mayor. Thanks. Welcome to council. I guess Kevin had to call in the battalion. I was kidding. Sorry, I've been upstairs. I'm multitasking work. So I want to echo something you said, Councilman Elliott. When you asked the question, what do you get? You know, and I agree, we need to hold them accountable if we're asking our residents to hold the rate. And, you know, I want to say, I don't feel like this is a property tax rate increase by holding the rate, because right now, no one in the city of Chattanooga is paying 1.5. And so this process of the certified rate causes us to come to the table to have this conversation and to get to what you're saying. You know, ask what we can get. You know, I think we all have had proposals. I already know what I'm getting, because guess what? It was on my it's on my website. It's on my campaign trail. I meet with them on a regular basis. They know, because guess what? These are your constituents as well. We've had that conversation. This is not our constituents. He's my mayor. Kevin, you know, you're our chief of staff, and so the people expect the mayor to keep his word, and I think you've done that so far. And so when people ask, what are we getting, think about what you're already not getting. There's a laundry list of stuff that I don't understand, like why y'all are coming to the table acting like we don't know what our needs are in our district. Like, that's weird to me that you guys don't know what your needs are. Like, I could spend all of your money really quickly in a day. So that's weird to me that, again, we're having this discussion about asking, and Mayor, no offense, please don't take offense to this, 1.99 is not aggressive enough. And I've told you that to your face. Because even though they're asking for a pay increase, why are we not paying people competitive rate? Let's drop our salaries. If y'all don't do this, he's asking 1.99, and it's 2.25, which is 26 more cent on the dollar. And y'all know y'all have needs in y'all's district. And then y'all want the media's calling this a property tax rate, and it's not. Please stop quoting us on that. We're doing nothing but holding the rate at 2.25. The city does not increase property value. Like, report that correctly. Because it's confusing our districts, and we're getting calls like, we're paying more in property taxes. No, you're not. Not yet. Nobody's paying 1.5 in this city yet. That's why we're having this discussion. He wants 1.99. We need 2.25. Like, I don't get it. Like, y'all have a list of needs in y'all's districts. And my deal is, Mayor, you know, I would like for you to commit, if we have 5 votes to move this point, to move it from 1.99, 26 cents on the dollar, which we all can afford. I can afford 50 cents on the dollar. And most of us at this table can, including your districts who have higher incomes and higher property. Your houses are worth more than in my district. You can afford it. And if not, I'm not trying to count your pockets, so don't count mine. But at the end of the day, I was coming in here and I was looking at the news and what's happening in New York. You know, the first responders had to respond to that shooting. And I got to thinking as I was coming, because this actually pisses me off and makes me emotional thinking about this, because what y'all don't know is that because of how low we pay them, guess who districts they can only afford to live in? Yours, mine, Rakita's, and Marvin's. So why y'all be like, why is he so mad about this? Because they're my neighbors. Hillcrest Heights has the highest concentration of police officers, Jenny. And so I'm fighting for my neighbors and my friends and my relatives who wants a living wage. And if you're asking the districts to only pay 26 on the dollar, that's why my people are like, let's do that. But y'all have to be bold. And that's not a criticism towards you, but I'm like, if you want more, then do more. And keep that commitment. And I'm not settling, and I'm telling you something, I will forego my city council salary if we walk away from this table and we do not pay fire and police a living wage to keep them out of payday lending loan places.
Well, can I respond?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I need to go back upstairs, but I'm just like, what am I missing here?
No, listen, first of all, in the 199, even in the lowest rate that we responded, the police and fire are covered. That is a foregone conclusion. I should have made that 100% clear walking in here. That's our first priority, and second and third priority. That's a foregone conclusion. If you guys, want to go and hold the rate, listen, like I showed you, that paving backlog, we have a ton of strategic priorities that we can wisely spend that money to push Chattanooga forward, right? And this is not a political decision for me. It's a practical decision. There is a point at which if you raise taxes too high, it can depress economic activity.
Who's raising taxes?
This is a Goldilocks thing, but frankly, again, this is not my decision. This is y'all's decision.
Well, who's raising taxes? Am I
This is a
not?
debate about the millage rate.
Right, but I'm saying, but why do
we?
we keep saying, can someone please educate me, who's raising taxes? And my deal is, and I know we're good, I know what you want to do, but what the deal is that, in your proposed 1.99, it just raises it just gives them more, because we're way behind, 4 years. Honestly, some of y'all houses should have been taxed 4 years ago, and you've taken advantage of the fact that we don't do appraisals every year. Had we captured some of the growths in your districts 4 years ago, you wouldn't be crying about what you have to pay this time. So we are catching up on a 22% inflation rate that should have happened in 2020. But like I said, y'all were cheap 4 years ago, not in my district, because we suffer. So when we don't pay them, guess who? They don't come to my district. And wait till they start coming to your district, checking your car doors and your garages. You're going to wish you had paid people. Because it'll happen. I see it happening on Highway 58 in the more wealthier homes. When we don't pay, the crime increases. When we cut community development, we're not doing this. The youth development and crime deterrent, we see crime rates rise in other high income levels, houses, areas. And y'all know the sociology behind why we have to do this. And my question again, Mayor, and I would like data on this, is that you guys keep saying what they ask for. Of course they're gonna ask for what they can get, because they don't wanna come in here and be like, I wanna be competitive. Because they think they're not gonna get anything if they ask for too much. I remember going to my parents and saying, hey, I want a bike, but I really want a go-kart. Then one Christmas, they surprised me with what I wanted. We can do it here. And so far, I haven't heard any debate at this table why nobody wants to pay your fair share of what you should have paid 4 years ago to catch us up, to make sure we're safe. And I need to know, Mayor, if we go to 2.25, are you going to commit to paying competitive? Because I want to be specific, competitive.
We are going to commit to paying competitive. I mean, again, we can get you the data. I mean, the pay study that we've done it looks like a Manhattan phone book, right? I mean, it is an exhaustive, extensive pay study. And I think police and fire are both happy that our proposal for their pay is extremely competitive. So I'm not worried about that. I mean, we can open that, we can crack that again and take another look at it if you like.
Melanie came in here.
I think we're happy, and I think they're happy with what's on the table for police and fire.
Our HR person came in here yesterday, I think at the request of Councilman Davis, if I recall, about what the averages were. And so that's what I'm saying, y'all act like we don't know this stuff. We know this stuff. We know that we are underpaying them not at a competitive rate. You know it. And so my deal is we're doing our part. And once we allocate, if we do that, then I expect you all to do your part and keep your word and pay them a competitive rate.
Oh, of course they will. I mean, again, when I came into office, we had to give them a 24% raise. Because there was a pay study sitting on my desk that the former mayor, as you remember, passed over, didn't want to act on. And that was a difficult way to introduce myself to the city as a mayor, but it was necessary, and people understood that it was necessary. And we're in a similar moment now. To Councilman Elliott's point, I mean, this is kind of a poker game with local law enforcement agencies, and, you know, we have to ante up. Now, hopefully, at some point, people get tired of playing poker and stop. I do think we're nearing the end of this inflationary period. I mean, we don't know, because we don't want to keep doing this. But that second proposal to index.
Yes,
you know,
the
to
cost of
CPI,
living
will
adjustment.
Fix it so that we don't have to revisit this again, because it would automatically be indexed.
Okay, well, that's all I have. I mean, I know there's other people who need to get commentary and questions, and I respect that, because, you know, I get mad when people do it to me, so, but I just wanted to be on the record, and if there's a point of education for me, I'm open-minded. But so far, none of y'all have come to me and said, oh, this is a burden on our district. Get them in the tax freeze program. That's what we're doing in my district. But pay your fair share. Let's close this loop on inflation from 2020. It's gonna go up again. Hey, America, Chattanooga, your taxes are probably gonna go up again in 4 years, because guess what? Things go up. Such is life. But I don't wanna live in a city and invite tourism and my friends to this city, and I can't protect them in downtown.
Well, to be fair, this is really the key slide in the whole presentation, Councilman Clark. I mean, that spike in inflation was quite literally unprecedented in our lifetime. God willing, we will not see one again in our lifetime. So I do think, you know, we have to respond to it. At the same time, you know, we can fix it going forward by indexing to, you know, a number. But I don't think, God willing, this is something we're gonna have to, you know, do again.
And Councilman Clark, can I add just to the broader point about doing more? If we have more, we can do more, right? And so when we look at the pay study, you're right, that what they have asked for, it gets them back in the game, but it doesn't make either CPD or CFD the highest paying agencies respectively in the region. And so if we are able to be properly resourced to incrementally do more, we would absolutely be willing to do that, because we would have the resources to do it. We just need to make sure that we understand not just this year's impact, but what is the long-term encumbrance, because remember, we are, not only do we want to catch them up to kind of close the gap that we find ourselves in, but we want to avoid creating another gap in the future. And we got to be able to do that in a fiscally responsible way that doesn't unduly encumber future councils and do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. But you guys know the solution, because we didn't create it. Other cities around us are already doing it. You know what the proposal is. Mayor Kelly, y'all know what it is. Just, you know, my deal is I get that.
Yeah.
You guys know what resolution we need to be considered at this table to keep us from in this position, to keep us out of this.
Well,
So do it. I mean, I don't
to
understand.
that
like,
point,
do
you know,
it.
again, that is for y'all to decide. It is your power. But to your point, and when we look at our peer cities, I mean, we are, you know, we're not Nashville, we're not Knoxville. We have headroom, to your point, in comparison with our peers, so.
And that's not a criticism on that. And y'all stole my line, Kevin. I want the, you know,
The credit.
the credit for
Send you a
that.
royalty.
But I don't mean to offend anybody. I don't mean to offend anybody by calling them cheap, but in my district, I am hearing the complaints of people who work for who are our first responders, who live in my district. I can look around the room and tell you and know who live in my district. I know they're not all black. Because we are a middle-class district where they can afford to live. Because some of our first responders can't afford to live in some of y'all's districts. So, but anyway, I know you need, I yield back.
information.
Now, we know that, and before we get off that subject, I should say, Nicole and her team with housing, you know, look, the average police or firefighter can't afford to buy a house in the city of Chattanooga. We are addressing that separately through some down payment system programs,
Gotcha.
but
Thank
it's an
you.
excellent point. And
Or just pay them, so you don't have to go to Georgia. You know, I wasn't even a supporter of that Georgia thing, but I understand why we had to do it. We would have never had to do that had y'all just paid people, but you know,
Point of
whatever.
information?
All right, so yes, Councilman, Elliott, point of information.
Yes, the HR study. Can we get a copy of that? And if I'm not please tell me if I'm wrong. Have they presented that to us, like, formally?
I mean,
No, we're happy to present it to you. You all have a copy. I'm pretty sure that it's in the work session folder, but if it's not, I will make sure that it is, and we're happy to come and give a presentation.
If that's appropriate, Madam Chair,
It is in there, Councilman.
to do a study.
You all were emailed, the study.
Okay.
Yeah, I have, we have it.
Okay, all right, so.
It's a big old spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Get ready.
To help at least condense it and put it on the record if that's appropriate to do a presentation.
And then we have Councilwoman, Madam Vice Chair Noel, followed by Madam Chair Hill, and then Councilman Henderson, right, and then Councilman Davis. All right, Madam Vice Chair.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Kevin just really answered my questions. I was trying to figure out, at the 1.99, Mayor Kelly said they would be covered. So I'm trying to figure, is it 80% covered, 100% covered to where they need to be? Or is it just going to give them enough to get by for a little bit?
So right now, the $23 million is what they need to get them to what they have asked for, but what we're now talking about is there opportunity for an incremental increase over what they have anchored at? And I'm telling you that if we have more resources, then yes, there is room for that, and we are happy to take a fresh look and model out some scenarios.
But what's in there is what they've asked for.
Okay, that would be competitive to other
Correct,
cities?
correct.
Okay,
No, that's not correct. What they've asked for is not competitive with other cities.
Well, it is, Councilman. I mean, it depends on, again, which other cities you're talking about. But.
How about our county?
Point of order.
I'm sorry.
Councilwoman
This is
Noel.
not true. Get us a data on that.
Councilman.
Sorry,
no,
excuse me, Mayor.
I'm sorry.
That's
Mayor,
fine. Yeah.
Mayor Kelly was responding to.
Yes.
Madam Vice Chair.
thank you.
But frankly, I would encourage you to dive back into the pay study and take a look. There are some outliers. Huntsville, Alabama, for example, pays their people extremely well. Memphis pays their people extremely well because they have to. So, right, I mean, look, we can always do more. I'm not sitting here saying we shouldn't pay them as much as we can absolutely afford to pay them. What I'm saying is what's in the proposal.
I'm gonna ask Chief Jenkins,
Okay.
he and I have talked about this a little bit before, and he, I think, can help clarify what we're talking about.
Thank you all. So the ask from myself and previous fire chief was essentially, where do you need to be competitive? This was back in the spring, right? And the way we looked at that was, what do we need right now that at least puts us in the ballpark? It doesn't make us the best paid or highest paid, even in this county, but it puts us in the ballpark. That's the numbers that we worked with. It was, the goal here was never like communicated to us, because we were looking at how does this affect every citizen in the city of Chattanooga. So we weren't trying to be greedy, not a single one of us. We were trying to look at how do we balance the need to retain qualified, trained firefighters and police officers so that we can actually serve in the capacity that you guys deserve. And how do we balance that with inflation? That was the goal. And the number that we kind of worked with, right, was putting us, as I demonstrated, hopefully within that starting police officer salary, not cadet, but police officer salary, right around that $58,000 a year mark, somewhere in there, right? Now, the county's, the sheriff's about to go up. His goal is to get right in that 60,000. So even with this, we're still likely to be behind Hamilton County. Now, if we can do more than that to put us competitive with Hamilton County, then absolutely we want to do that. But I will tell you all, more importantly, is that we don't have to come to this table again.
That's right.
Right? That is more important than an extra $2,000 a year.
That's it.
So whether we land at a 58 or we land at a 60, great. I would love to land at 60 or 61. But even over and above that, we have to have sustainability. We have to have sustainability, and not to the point of our citizens are scared to death every single year of what is it going to cost me now, right? It needs to be clear. It needs to be tied into actual revenue growth.
Right.
That's kind of where we were coming from, where we landed, with the numbers that were presented. So the pay study that was done previously, what Melody came in and stated was that we're asking for less than what that pay study even says that we need. That is true. That is true. But that pay study is not really taking into consideration sustainability and how do we ensure that we're not right back here in 4 years, because nobody wants that.
And thank you, Chief, and
Yes.
indexing it, you know, like we're talking about in a separate ordinance would fix that piece so that we wouldn't have to do that, provided that indexed amount flowed through to the raises, right?
All right, Councilwoman, Madam Vice Chair, does that answer your question?
It answered my question, but I just have one more statement, please. So, you know, I'm gonna say District 8, District 9, District, 5, and 7. I mean, the norm for us is just live on just getting by. That's what we do. That's the norm for us. And it should not be. It should be where we have what is absolutely necessary in order to survive. So just getting by and living on that is, that needs to change. You know, I came out the gate with that. Give exactly what is needed so that you don't have to keep coming back. Because if you wait, then it's gonna double up next time, and then it's gonna triple up the next time. And it's just, we're fighting a losing battle. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Madam Chair.
Thank you. Chief Chambers, I appreciate what you said about how you all balanced the need with also thinking about the sustainability and the taxpayer having a smoothed out experience and not living in fear of a large tax increase every 4 years. Thank you for that. I think I value that line of thought. Let's be clear that every person so far that has spoken around this table, from Councilman Davis to Councilman Henderson to myself, each of who have said, let's look at where we can find efficiency. Every person around this table has said, we want to fully fund these fire and police raises. Every person, from the very beginning of this. So I don't think we have our fire and police in any, should not be in any point of turmoil. There should not be turmoil around this table to that end. We will come out of this with fire and police made whole. And I think what I'm hearing from council is we have a lot of energy toward finding a long-term solution, which hopefully councils years from now will be grateful for. One question related to the future, Mr. Mayor, the index concept is very interesting to me. Do you know if there are any preemptions currently in state law for us to do that work?
There are not, to my knowledge.
Okay.
No, I think
Okay.
the state government would be happy to see something like that because it is kind of the best practice for fiscal responsibility.
Okay, that's good to know. The other thing I'd like to point out is that the people that I am most concerned about in my district as I consider this increase are in fact the very people who will be most impacted because their home values have gone up so much. They are, in many cases, the first responders, Councilman Clark, that live in my district, who do live in my district. Do they live in the most expensive portions of my district? No. Do I live in the most expensive portion of my district? No. But when a person's home in Dale Acres has gone up 163% in value, and they have a police cruiser in the driveway, I worry for them about their taxes going up. And frankly, as a person who has also served on the school board, something that I'm always thinking about is that balance of you give a raise only to have that raise be absorbed by health insurance fees, or in this case, property tax. So I don't take this in a blasé way, and I will fully embrace the concept of being frugal. If you want to call me chief, that's fine.
Chief?
Now, as it goes to paying the fair share, Mr. Mayor, you made a comment I'd like us to unravel a little bit, please. You said that you weren't in here, but hopefully you heard
I was
this.
listening
The
upstairs.
mayor said thank you
Yeah,
for
I
your
was listening
support of
upstairs
this, and you said you will support whomever supports you in this, and the opposite is true, which says to me if someone doesn't vote for this, that you will actively work against them. Is
what
that
he said.
how I should take that?
Well, look, we have a city to run,
Uh-huh.
and I'm absolutely, committed to running the city, but what the point of my illustration was that, I can't run again. This is not a political exercise for me, but, I sacrificed a lot for this job, and I care a lot about this city, and I'm determined to drive it forward. And I hope that we can all come to some conclusion as to what's best for the city, but, we support our friends.
So
That's
for,
just how politics works.
so for the people of District 2 who will hear this and consider where they stand on this issue and counsel me on what they think about an additional, a higher millage rate. What I'm hearing you say is that they can support and get paving and get other support from the city from this tax increase, or they cannot support, but if it passes, they will still pay for it. They just will not receive any benefit from it.
Well, of course they will receive benefit from it. I mean, that is not what I'm talking about.
That's not what you're saying.
No, of course not. But look, we have, to the point that Councilman Clark was making earlier, I mean, that's why we are not proposing as administration that we hold the rate at 2.25, right? I do understand that there's a balance point here, there's a compromise to be met, but I think the 199 is the point at which we can meet most of our goals, right? And yet demonstrate some fiscal responsibility and austerity.
Okay, thank you. That's all for now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Councilman Henderson, followed by Councilman Davis. And Councilman Clark.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilwoman Hill, that was one of my concerns as well. I was concerned if we didn't support this, if our district would be negatively impacted as a result of not supporting this. Madam Chair, Finance Chair, I think we've been given a lot of information today that we need to digest, and I know you made a comment earlier that this was our last budget session. I feel like we're gonna need at least another budget session to sort of parse out what we've been given. We still don't have an exact line item on the budget where this proposal is going. Are we gonna go with what was it, $1.80, $1.99, $2.25? I mean, I think there's a lot that we still need to at least reach some kind of consensus on. So, I mean, I think I, for one, would like to see at least one more budget session to deal with some of what we've been given today.
So is everyone amenable to the August 3rd budget session starting at maybe,
August 5th?
11? It's the 5th? I'm just making up times, I'm sorry. August 5th, budget session,
At 2.
maybe we need sooner than that, maybe 11.
I believe, yeah, at least
11.
start by lunchtime or.
11 a.m. Okay, so let's do
11 o'clock.
Tuesday, August 5th at,
I have a commitment already to speak at the North Shore Chamber that day.
okay,
At what time?
11:30.
11:30. Could we start at 1?
Would that be ample time? Because we have,
No.
2 hours?
maybe a little more time than that. We'll have to,
We could do 9.
no,
We
Yeah.
could do 9 to 11,
Mm-hmm.
and then we could
Take
come
a
back
break.
at 1.
If we need to.
ooh, I'm
Okay.
trying to be
Well, they
supportive.
go all day.
That's why they pay you the big
Trying to be
bucks.
supportive, trying to get us here at 9, but okay, yes,
Madam Chair don't have 9 o'clock on her.
thank you, and that's what and that's why I love Grand Chair.
At least 9 a.m., right? Or 9 a.m.
Does it
doesn't.
have to be on Tuesday? I mean, could we do another?
Yes, it does.
It does.
Yeah, it does have to
For
be.
sure.
This is our designated.
We have regular jobs.
Yeah, as Councilman Clark
Yes.
said, we
Come
are
on,
working,
come on.
we at work.
Yeah.
Y'all say, come on, represent.
So, let's
job.
look at Tuesday the 5th, House 10.
10 sounds great.
Okay, so look at Tuesday the 5th at 10 a.m. for another budget session. So we'll do 10 to 12.
Can we make
We'll
it 10:30?
break, and then, no ma'am, we'll do 10 to 12, got 10:30. Now we go, before we go, it's gonna be at 10:45, like
No,
10 to
10:30.
12. So 10 to 12, we'll break. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, for your patience with me. So,
Running thin, my
I
baby.
know.
My
10 to
young
12.
adult. I love you to
I know you-
pieces.
I know you do. So 10 to 12, and then we'll break, and then come, if we need to come for the afternoon session, we will.
At 1.
At 1. Yes. Okay, and then by that time, and then Councilman Henderson, I did wanna make sure that we had your question. You, asked early on how this will impact the top 1/3%, and you wanted to see that in like a chart type deal, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanna make sure I had it down. Okay,
A percentage increase, right?
percentage?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Well, when you're looking at that, we can provide the data as well, to Chairwoman Hill's point, to look at the average officer salary, and look at very specifically, what the average house value, what that property tax would rise to versus what the increase in pay would rise to see whether that would be covered or not covered. I think we'll find that it does cover it more than, but it's a good point.
Okay, so that works. Okay, Councilman Henderson, you have any other questions? Okay, thank you so much. We have Councilman Davis, and then we'll do Councilman Harvey, and then Councilman Clark.
So to kind of think about renters again, if we take the rate from 1.55 to 1.99 or whatever point along there, will there be some sort of appropriation for rent assistance for those who might need it? Because, you know, Councilman Clark mentioned the tax freeze, and that's a great program for those that own a home. And I certainly appreciate Councilman Elliott's proposal to increase the income limits there, but as I mentioned this morning, you know, roughly half of our residents are renters. They don't have any skin in this game, except to have their rent increase. So is there any sort of plan to provide for that if needed?
So again, our roadmap is one Chattanooga plan. Obviously, affordable housing is one of the 7 pillars. I think frankly, the job in this successive budget session really should be to look at all those priorities and map them over, right? This much buys us this much. We need to carve that stuff up and map it over and decide, you know, again, the simple, easy button is to go back to the paving budget. We can spend it all on paving, right? And we're done, but we have more priorities than that, and they're all competing priorities. So I would encourage you to, keep an eye on that in successive budget sessions and make sure that it stays in there because, Nicole, do you want to speak to that at all? No? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know whether or not we can do something like that, but we'll certainly look at it.
But certainly, what we could say is
And
money
put something
for
forward.
affordable housing initiatives certainly would be in that bucket of what we would do with incremental revenue.
Especially considering, you know, Section 8 is frozen right now.
Yep,
And
exactly.
folks are hurting.
Exactly.
So can somebody just speak to the eviction prevention initiative or program that we have? Is that something we can maybe kind of put some funds into, to Councilman Davis' point, to kind of shore that up in that case, if this passes, if that is the case?
Yes.
Can you speak to that, Nicole? If you would like to come up?
We allocated $500,000 this year to eviction prevention that we are in partnership with. It's a continuation of the program that Mayor Colley started when he came into office. So we are budgeted for that this year, but of course every dollar helps. So if there is a desire to add more money to eviction prevention, we're happy to sit down and look at what that would look like with you.
And I will mention, going back to this slide where I said we kind of had dog-eared some stuff, owner-occupied rehab, down payment assistance were 2 of the things that we had kind of just put placeholders for, but we can certainly add EPI and then look into some rent assistance and see what that
again,
might look like.
Please know that staff has really worked really hard to make sure that these are the most efficient expenditures. Case in point, owner-occupied rehab is like killing 2 birds with 1 stone, because not only are you helping them stay in the house, you're increasing the value of the house. So we're looking for the most efficient expenditures that we can possibly make when we're doing this.
Thank you, Nicole. All right, Councilman Davis, had any other questions?
No, that's it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that. Councilman Harvey, and then followed by Councilman Clark.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to reiterate something that Chairwoman Hill said a few minutes ago, and I want to make sure the narrative is being received correctly, not only by our first responders, but from the citizens of Chattanooga. I would venture to say, and council, correct me if I'm wrong, that everybody at this table supports a pay increase for fire and police. Period. I think we've all said that. The debate and where we may disagree is how we get there. So again, y'all get that? The goal is we want increases for fire and police, but how we get there is the debate. So I want that to be known, especially from my point of view. The concern I have is, I too have first responders, some of my very best friends who do live in my district and are on the fire department and on Chattanooga Police Department. And they've come to me with their concern about pay, and I had one law enforcement member of law enforcement, not on CPD, come to me and say, if you increase my taxes, I can't live in the city anymore. I talked to a 96-year-old senior last week who said, I'm terrified that my Social Security is not going to cover my tax increase. So I want to say that this is a heavy decision. It's a very heavy decision. It's something I think about day and night, because I want to do the right thing. As Lyndon Johnson said, it's easy to do the right thing, but knowing what the right thing is a hard thing to know. I want to read something that I got during the campaign trail, and it was from one of the police unions. It says, from the outside looking in, it seems the city always has money for non-essential spending, but when it comes to necessities like fire and police pay, we historically struggle to meet those needs. What are your views on how cities should spend taxpayer money? That's a heavy question. So, over the course since we've been discussing this issue, my question almost every week, including 7 days ago, was, does the proposed millage rate cover only fire and police? The answer has been yes, until today. That's my concern. There's been things added on since we've discussed 7 days ago, when the answer was yes. It's only fire and police pay that will be addressed. So again, I just want to say that's what's in my mind. It's a heavy decision, and it's something I would have hoped was a little bit more of a balanced approach, rather than an increase in the military. So I hope maybe we can have more discussions on that in the next week or so at the next budget meeting. But that's my thinking. Thank you.
Yeah.
I would just say, I share your concerns and the concerns of that constituent. Obviously, when I came into office, that was the reason we gave a 24% raise to our first responders. So, I mean, historically, that has been the case. But again, from the presentation, we've also been through, even since 2021, an unprecedented spike in inflation. And it didn't just affect pay for police and fire. It affects every single thing that we spend money on for city services, right? So again, yeah, it's your decision. It's a strategic decision. It's probably appropriate that you're canceling strategic planning, because that's what you're doing in discussing the budget. You show me a budget, I'll show you your priorities. So it's quite literally that simple. Are we going to continue to invest to drive the city forward? Or are we going to tie a tourniquet in it and whistle past it? And that's y'all's decision.
All right, Councilman Harvey, any other questions?
That's all, thank you.
All right, Councilman Clark, any other questions outside of Councilman Clark? All right, Councilman Clark.
Yeah, and I want to respond to my colleagues. We've heard those, in my districts, in my family, we've heard those concerns about rent rates going up. Rent rates before tax, I guess the tax rate went up, they were already going up on rent before we even got here, which is why I think the irony is that we need more money to help those people. You're asking how can we assist the people who are being impacted by this? Well, it's already happening, and it's been happening before we even got here. And so what I would ask you to do is to, yes, think about that, but put money into the bucket so that we can handle the problems with rising rent before we even ask homeowners who are renters to pay $26 or $40 more a month. We've already had that problem. So yes, please, by all means, use that as a remedy to help people in my district who've been suffering with rising rent costs for 4 years. So yeah, please pay for that. Please help them pay for that. The other part, I'm sorry, Mayor Keller, please. I know you went out of turn when it was my turn. She recognized you.
Point of order, I'm sorry, point of order, Mayor Cass.
The other part is that government can't do it all. government does not have the capacity to do it on our own because we won't raise taxes to do anything. So we have to go to social services. Councilman Davis, we have 211. We have people like my churches that because government can't help, we pay rent every week, every day. We got a food pantry in Brainerd. So don't use that as an excuse to be like, oh, you know, but and not saying that you are, but I just want to let you know what the resources are because you should be concerned about that. I've been concerned about that before we even got to this point. So please fund those programs to help us before we even do this. Also, Councilman Harvey, when I get calls from elderly people who are on Social Security, disability, or black, whatever you want to call it, whatever your disenfranchisement is that you think this will impact you, again, we have social services for that that have been in place for decades. That when in my community, when stuff like that happens, you know where they go? They go to the churches. And we gladly, that's what I'm saying, my people gladly will pay this because we do it every week in our tithes and offering so that we can do what government won't do. Which is why I'm sitting here, I'm going to support it because my church has been doing it before because the government won't do it. Or maybe you all won't do it. But all I'm saying is that if someone calls you about Social Security, put them in their tax freeze program. We have remedies for all of your concerns, which is not an excuse not to support this 26% increase. It's 26 cents on the dollar from his $1.99 proposal to 2.25. So I'm hearing all of y'all's ideas, and I'm like, okay, I can consider that. But I just want to be on the record and also saying it has never been my goal to just raise their pay. So y'all keep saying that the council, it was not my goal to just raise pay. I never said that. I said I want to give them competitive pay so they can afford to live here. So I just want to be on the record because y'all keep misquoting, and I never said that our goal was to raise my goal. I said competitive pay so we don't have to. The reason why we're going in Georgia getting people because it's cheaper. And then that's why they're coming here. But if they can stay here, I would love for them to do that. So I wanted to go and to correct that. And the other thing is that I realize that of course, all of us have first responders in our district. You know, do not twist words because no one's criticizing what's not in your district. What I'm saying is there's an opportunity to address the needs in your districts. And furthermore, again, we didn't raise, this body and this government did not raise the property value on Dale Circle at 163%. Marty Hayne was here yesterday. We have other people who represent us. I have a state, you have a Republican, Rand County government, state house people. They're responsible for some of this stuff. So I'm not about to put that burden on this council when literally all we're considering is holding the rate for a property value assessment that none of us did, including on Dale Circle that you mentioned. And I'm sorry, and guess what? In my district, I have a whole tract of lake house properties that are worth more than some of the houses in your district, and they're not complaining about this because I have been making the case that, listen, I'm frugal, cheap too. I don't like to spend because I don't know what's coming in this economy. But when we talk about balance, I recognize that if we don't do this, what will happen? It's like health. Don't get that prostate exam and see what happens. Don't get that breast exam and see what happens. It will cost you more because you didn't do the preventative care. This is preventative care, and it is common sense, Councilman Harvey, because you're in healthcare. And I'm not guilt tripping. I don't care what y'all do, honestly. Do what you do. In my district, I have to make the case because they expect us to educate and advocate. I'm not trying to blow our budget. I'm just saying, of course, all first responders live in your district, but I think it is an essential service. And I just can't believe that this isn't a debate. You know, I'm like, let's do what we need to do. Let me make sure I covered all my notes because I know y'all rushing me. Trust me, I want to get out of here just as much as y'all do. Okay, that's it. And then Mayor Kelly, please, one of the things that we need help with is really educating the community about this. There's a lot of confusion because there's wordplay. There's wordplay.
Well,
And I don't want to accuse you. I was upstairs when you said, I don't think you said anything, and I don't always agree with him. We spar, I don't like some of the stuff you do. And not all, but you know what I'm saying. But in this case, I don't think that you are accusatory in a place to where you would stifle anything from any district.
Absolutely.
And I would never accuse you of that. And when there are opportunities for us to give you feedback on some things, we give it to you. but in that particular case, I don't think that you would do that, so,
Not at all.
thank you.
May I?
That's it.
Yeah, so the only thing I want to point out is relative back to way back to the comments around affordable housing. We forget very often that, it's a quotient, right? It's a fraction. It's what you're paying, 30% of your income, over what you're making. So as you're considering what's in the budget, please don't neglect the economic mobility and the economic development stuff. I mean, one way to look at the budget, and Jermaine and I did this quite a lot, was to look at, which departments are essentially Band-Aids, things that we have to have because city government just has to have them, and which ones actually kind of make us money, which ones generate economic growth. Again, this is a decision about strategic investment for the future. So I just would ask you to remember that. That's, economic development is part of the sort of solving our affordable housing problem.
All right, council, any additional questions or comments?
All hearts and
Well,
minds are clear.
Councilman Harvey, I'm sorry, Councilman Harvey, and any,
Yeah, when were the additions made, following our discussion last week, when we said it was only for fire and police? When were the additions made?
I think that we have always been balancing competing priorities on our side, and the conversation with you guys has consistently centered on fire and police. I do not believe that I ever said to you that it would only be fire and police. I think that I have been very careful with my words because I have known that from affordable housing to economic development to paving to parks and outdoors, deferred maintenance, to all of the departmental requests, the requests for additional people related to fire, related to police. I have always known that it was going to be very difficult for us to only do fire and police and to keep it that tight. And then I will say, Councilman Harvey, that as we have gone through the budget, because I'm telling you guys, we have, Weston and I, and I mean all of us, we have dissected and reconstructed this thing. And one of the things that has emerged as a result of that exercise is the reality of what we're trying to show in this slide, which is the cost to simply continue doing what we have been doing since 2021 is going up, right? And so where's the $23 million that we need to fund fire and police without doing a tax increase? Well, it's right there, because everything is going up. The cost of doing business is going up. And we are, if we only do fire and police, then we are but it's going to be, going back to this slide, it's going to be this kind of like downward spiral of negative impact to residents. Because we're going to have this conversation. We are going to settle on whatever it is that you guys decide to settle on. And then guess what? You're going to keep calling us because you got brush pickup, because you got 311 isn't working right, because you got this road that you want to get paved. And what I'm trying to tell you is that unless we find additional revenue, we're not going to be able to keep up appearances. And so the last thing I want to do is come and talk about increased millage personally, right? But I'm not the mayor. The mayor's the mayor. And I think he's right in this case, that fundamentally our job is to best position the city for continued success. And I think that what continues to kind of just get misconstrued, and I keep trying to say it differently, but increasing home values is an indicator of economic prosperity. Now, does that mean that everybody has been economically prosperous? Of course it doesn't, and we need to think through that. And I'm very sensitive to those who are hit hard. But the bigger kind of like the relative tax burden of an increase is tied to the home value. Home value is tied to earnings, right? And so you've got people who can afford $1 million home, and that comes with $1 million, indexed expenses pursuant to owning that type of a home. And then you've got people on the other end of the spectrum who have a completely different set of challenges, right? But I think that it's very nuanced, it's difficult, I'm rambling, but I do not think, if I said that if I ever said here at the table that the administration is going to propose a rate to only account for fire and police, then I'm sorry, because I never believed that in my heart. And I've been trying very, very hard to be very careful with my words the entire time.
Well,
Because I
and
didn't wanna
to be
misrepresent
fair,
anything.
the narrative in the office has been from the beginning, our first, second, and third priority is the raise for our first responders, right? That was a non-negotiable. That was a thing that we just had to have. But, you know, as the chief pointed out, I mean, it doesn't stop there because of inflation. And it's very, very difficult for us and for our residents because it's invisible, right? It's just like the temperature of the room just went up by that percentage, and we have no choice but to keep up with it if we are going to provide services in constant dollars. And that's where the fiscal responsibility piece comes in. And again, for the average household, you're talking about $1.23 a day, right? And of course, people, as we all know, our constituents love to complain. Nobody wants to pass along costs. But the question is, you know, is this an investment that our average resident can afford and is worth it? And if we're not doing our job to run efficient and effective government, which I take great pride in the mayor's office, then I expect that they wouldn't feel that way. But I do feel like after the last election, we've earned the right, very frankly. We've got a lot of momentum in the city, and we want to obviously keep going with it.
Going back real quick, if I may, about the rental assistance thing, this has been kind of bouncing around in my head. Are we rational to believe that rents will not go up in the city of Chattanooga if we hold the certified tax rate? Is that a rational thing to believe?
Rents have stabilized in the city. I mean, I think they will tick, but at the same time, they've gone up so dramatically, they are stabilizing. That's what the data shows.
Do you think?
And landlords will pass on expenses.
I can see that point. I think that's right. But is there data to indicate that it's a binary, like a yes or no, as if this decision has a direct tie to whether or not rents will go up? Because it feels like what has crept in is this notion that, almost to say that rents in Chattanooga are going to increase proportionate to the adopted tax rate. And I don't know if I think that.
As a person who's rented most of my life, I only bought a house in like 2020. So my rent, I didn't care what was going on in the city government at the time. All I knew was every year my rent went up. And it didn't matter. I don't know if it was, looking at these charts, looked like they wasn't increasing taxes at the time. But rent, because it was just built into.
It goes up pretty much every year.
It was built into my rent. Yeah, like it was just built into my rent every year. I just knew every year when I renewed my lease that my rent was gonna go up. You know, I may have started, now this one I live, it's way back. But it was maybe started at, I moved in my apartment, it was maybe $525. By the time I left, it was like, you know, $600 or $700. But that was incremental over X amount of years. Before I purchased a home, then I realized I should have been doing this the whole time because mortgages set, and even though we haven't changed the rate, you know, my escrow changes and, you know, things
It
happen
does.
like that. So
Even though we haven't changed the rate.
just speaking like just from a renter perspective, because like I said, I've rented majority of my life. My rent has always gone up, even if it's for a small amount. Sometimes it's gone up a bit. One time it went up so much I had to move because I wasn't paying that. But it has always gone up, and it didn't matter what y'all was doing over here in city or county government. My landlord is my landlord, and I'm gonna pay. I had to pay whatever whatever that comes in. So renewal lease. So I can't in good conscience say our decision at this table is gonna make, it's gonna be the direct decision for that. I still have family members and stuff that rent, and it goes up. It doesn't matter what we doing over here because it's the landlord's decision. Then I have some great landlords that don't. They purchase their property, they own it, making money off of it. Just, some people, are still paying $400 of rent for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath because they're but it's because of where they live in Alton Park and things like that. But which is a great neighborhood, by the way. But the person who purchased it, they own it, and they're like, hey, I live great, and I want these people to have affordable housing. So I think it just depends on the landlord, to be honest. I mean, that's just my little 2 cents.
Thank you for that. I would submit that rents are a function of macroeconomic exogenous influences on the regional economy,
It's the family environment, man.
property tax being one of them. But I do not think that it is ipso facto, like we have the ability to control whether or not people's rents are going up. I think the converse of that is more true, where reappraisals, inflation, this is the world talking to us. And I think that when the world is talking to us, we have to decide how to respond in a calibrated way to best position the things that we know that we have to do for the people who live here and call Chattanooga home.
And Kevin and Mayor, I want to be very respectful of you guys, and Kevin, if I misunderstood you, please accept my apology. That was truly my understanding, so, again, I apologize if I misunderstood.
Well, listen, thank you for that.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I'm sincere in what I said as well. And if I did say that, which is a possibility, because I can't remember everything I said, I shouldn't have said that, and I shouldn't have ended. I've tried to keep this thing pretty tight, sideboarded the whole time. But I've also tried to be honest about the full picture that I have been aware of as we have had internal discussions about the financial realities that the city faces.
All right. Any other questions, council? All right, well, this has been a very robust, productive meeting, so I appreciate you all so much. So we are planning to be here next Tuesday. Thank you, Councilman Henderson. Next Tuesday, August the 5th at 10 a.m. For a follow-up budget session as we've received all this information. All this is in the folder. We have it, and then you'll have the additional information that Councilman Henderson's asked for. Did anybody else have questions that, I think Kim, you still jot them down? Okay, any other questions or anything that we need to get, answered prior to next week, so we'll make sure we have those available. Okay, with that, it is 1:31, you can have your time back, and, we will see y'all at 3:30.
Oh, I'm not the one.